Even before starting this video, I already know that I'm going to get roasted down in the comments, but just bear with me a little bit before you do that, because I promise it's all going to make sense at the end of the video. One thing that I really try and strive to do with this channel is do something different. Try to give advice that's completely different than the mainstream, because honestly, sometimes I just get sick of it. You hear the same stuff over and over and over, and it kind of just gets mundane. And sometimes there are other methods that would work better for you. And so my job is not to say which one is better for you, but just to give you kind of a broad perspective so that you can pick and choose and decide what's best for you. You know what? Sometimes I just get sick of the same old boring crap. Right now, you're supposed to earn $1,000, set that aside for your emergency fund. Once you've got that done, you're supposed to earn 3 to 6 months, put that in a bigger emergency fund, and just let it sit there and lose money year after year after year. That way, each and every year, inflation can just eat you alive, you can feel secure, and everything is good to go. And you know what? That advice is just plain stupid, and I'm here to tell you why. What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Bryce with Sane Sense, where we talk about everything from personal finance to real estate investing. If this is your first time watching the channel, go ahead and subscribe for me down below. There's a little red subscribe button. And also be sure to hit that thumbs up, like button for me, because it really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. I'm pumped to be back here making another video for you guys, and today we're talking about emergency funds. I'm going to give you 3 practical examples on why you actually don't need an emergency fund and what you should do instead. Like I said earlier, the general advice right now is that you should have 3 to 6 months of your expenses saved up, just set aside in a checking or a savings account for a rainy day if you were to lose your job or something bad were to happen. Let's assume for a second that your monthly net take-home pay is $3,500. So that means that if you were to follow the 3 to 6 month rule, you'd have to have anywhere between $10,000 to $21,000 sitting in a savings account for a rainy day. Every passing day, every passing month, every passing year, that money is just withering away and you're losing money due to inflation. Instead, why don't we take that money and put it somewhere else that actually benefits you? So getting right into it, here is number 1. Now, when I tell you this, I know you're going to go down into the comment section and you're just going to roast me alive, but hold on one second and just hear me out. With the exception of maybe $500 or $1,000, maybe even $1,500, put that aside, but every other extra dollar that you have, dump it into the stock market. I mean, none of this stupid 3 to 6 month crap. That's garbage. Every single extra dollar that you have sitting around, dump it into the stock market and index funds. And here's why. Even if the stock market tomorrow just all of a sudden tanks over 50%, you will still have money that's accessible in the event of an emergency that you could liquidate, cash out, and pull out to cover whether it's a medical bill or whatever have you. You will still have money in the stock market available for you if you need it. When I say this, people freak out and they think, whoa. Okay, well, that might be true, but what happens if you lose your job and then you have an unexpected medical bill, and then on top of that, you drive your car off a cliff? What? Look, I realize that life happens, emergencies happen, but the likelihood of all of these things happening all at once, compounding at the exact same time that the market is at its very bottom, is slim to none. Instead, if you're taking money every single paycheck and you're constantly just putting it into the market, maybe it's $200 a week, $200 a month, whatever it is, if you're constantly adding that to the market, even if everything else tanks, you will always have some money available to you. Now, of course, if you don't believe me, that's okay. I love statistics, so let's look at some numbers. Over the last 60 years, the biggest stock market crash was that of October 2007 through March of 2009. During that time, the market bottomed out, losing 56%. Now, I'm not saying that that's easy to stomach. I mean, if I logged into my brokerage accounts tomorrow and saw that my portfolio was less than half or where it was right now, I mean, yeah, I'd be sick too. I'm not saying that it's easy to stomach. But whether or not it's easy or hard to view that, I still have 50% of what I had left over. it's very unlikely that I'm going to need all of that. I'm going to have to cash it all out. It's very unlikely that I'm going to have to pay for all of these catastrophes all at once. Before 2007, 2009, the previous crash to that was in August of 1987 to December of 1987. During that 3-month span, the market dropped 33%. And before that, we saw another crash from November 1980 to August of 1982 with a crash of 27%. And again, I'm not saying this is easy. Nobody wants to see their portfolio just dip overnight. Of course, it's only on paper, but regardless, when you see the numbers go down, it's not fun. But what I'm saying is, even if the market is to tank 75% tomorrow overnight, you're still going to have some money left in your portfolio. Option number 2 is to use a retirement account as your emergency fund. Whenever you put money into a 401k or maybe it's a work-sponsored plan, you're not actually putting money into a 401k, you're still investing it into the market. It's some allocation, some spread of bonds and stocks or index funds or mutual funds, whatever it may be, however you have it allocated. Here's how it works. Let's say I want to have $15,000 set aside in a savings account for my emergency fund. I would go to work, I would get my paycheck, and I would actually earn more than what I take home, obviously because of my taxes. So depending on your tax bracket, it's different for everybody else, but average, let's say we're speaking for the typical American, you would have to earn about $23,000 to have a net take home after taxes and everything to earn $15,000 to set aside into your savings account for your emergency fund. However, you can kind of hack the government's retirement systems and not have to do that at all. If I take that $23,000 and I put it into a 401k, I don't have to pay taxes on that money. It's a pre-tax retirement account. So now I can have that entire lump sum of $23,000 sitting in my 401k invested in stocks or whatever you choose to invest that in. Now, if an emergency really does hit, what you can do is you can withdraw that money penalty-free because of a hardship. If you have a medical bill or you have some crazy tuition fees come up that you have to pay for, you can withdraw that money penalty-free due to a hardship. There's a whole list of different things that qualify as a hardship, but if you really do come into some sort of financial trouble, chances are it qualifies and you'll be able to pull that money out of your 401k that you've already invested, pre-tax, mind you, and get that money out penalty-free. Even in the worst case scenario, I'm hoping this doesn't happen, but worst case scenario, say you do have to cash out some of that money and you do have to pay the penalty. What happens is you don't have to pay those penalties until the following tax season. And depending on when the hardship is or whatever, it may be 6 months or 8 months until the next tax season comes due. So hopefully within that 6 to 8 month period, you've got enough time to kind of get back up on your feet and get back on track so that you can cover those penalties. I hope you're starting to see that I'm not trying to make this money easy. That's the point. You don't want to make it very accessible because there's kind of this psychological switch that when the money is difficult to access, you don't go through the hassle to pull it out. And that's the point. We want to make it difficult to access this money so that you just don't go spend it frivolously. Now, before I go on to method number 3, I want to just put out there that I don't recommend using just one of these methods. There's absolutely some risk associated with it, even though I really don't see it as that risky. It's definitely more risky than just having all of your money in a savings account. But because of that, I recommend using 2 or 3 or more of these strategies to spread out your risk and kind of diversify so that if something does happen in the market, you're not spread super thin. Option number 3 is to use a Roth IRA. This is similar to the 401k that I mentioned earlier as a tax-advantaged account, but rather than being pre-tax like a 401k, this is going to be post-tax in a Roth IRA. I'm not going to go into all the differences between a Roth IRA and a 401k. That's kind of a bigger topic and probably better suited for an entirely different video. Starting in 2019, you can contribute up to $6,000 per year in a Roth IRA. As we already mentioned, these are after-tax contributions that you can put in year after year, and they continue to grow so that come retirement time, you'll be able to pull out all of these funds tax-free. And of course, if you pull out these funds before tax time, there is a penalty. But now hold on just a second, there's a trick with a Roth IRA. If you pull out the earnings, the money that you make off of the interest, that's where you get penalized. But the cool thing with the Roth IRA is you can pull out all of your personal contributions, all of the initial investment that you dumped into the Roth IRA, completely penalty-free. So let's say for the last 3 years in a row, I've maxed out my Roth IRA. If I come into a hardship, some unexpected medical bill, I can actually go in there and pull out a lump sum due to a hardship, or I guess even if you don't need it for a hardship, you can pull out all of the cash that you put in there penalty-free. All during this time, all of that money that you had invested in the account was growing, typically in that 8% range for the stock market, compared to what it would have been sitting at, which is 0% in a savings account. Looking at all three of these methods, why is this a better option than just having all of your money set aside in a simple checking or savings account, kind of earmarked for your emergency fund? And the reason for that is because if the money is sitting there, it will get spent sooner or later. No matter what, it will get spent. A lot of people have a lot of good self-control. A lot of people don't have good self-control. Regardless, eventually that money will get tapped into, whether it's for an emergency or not. It's so easy to look at the latest pair of headphones that just came out, or the latest iPhone that was just released, and say, well, I've got a lot of money there, so I'll pull some money out and I'll just reimburse it using my next paycheck. Whenever all those funds are placed somewhere else, there's kind of this psychological feeling knowing that it's going to be a hassle to pull out all those funds, and you're just like, I don't think it's really worth it. Knowing that you're going to have to say this is a hardship, or knowing that you're going to have to pay fees to a brokerage account to sell a bunch of your stock, it just makes it more difficult to access those funds, and that alone is going to make it so that you don't spend the money. There's one distinction that I do want to make, because I think a lot of people kind of mix or mold together their savings account and their emergency fund. And they're very different things, and they shouldn't be combined whatsoever. An emergency fund is just for that. It's for an emergency. It's for an unexpected something, medical bill or car repair that comes up down the road that you weren't expecting. If you're trying to save for something large like a down payment on a house, or say you're trying to purchase a car in all cash, and you need to have that money at a predetermined set date, then those funds should not be put into a brokerage account or an index fund or stocks whatsoever. Because the market can fluctuate so much, you may have the money today, but you might not have it tomorrow. And if you have to have that money in cash, it should not be used in your emergency fund, and it should not be used in an investment account. All three of these methods that I mentioned, they're break glass methods. And that's the point. We want it to be very difficult and psychologically difficult to access this money. I want as much motivation in my life not to have to break the glass and use those funds. And I know for me that if that money is sitting in a savings account, I'll probably tap into it. For myself personally, I take every single extra dollar that I have and I put it into an investment account, including for real estate. You already know by watching the other videos on my channel that I'm kind of a fanatic about real estate. I know that if everything goes south, I'm gonna have money kind of hidden away in all these different funds and all these different brokerage accounts and all these different properties that I can tap into if I really need to. Now, in closing, here's the last thing that I'm gonna leave you with. If you have 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in a savings account, I kind of, at least for me personally, I feel like I would be very comfortable. And to me, a lot of the times being comfortable equates to being lazy. And I don't want to be lazy. I want to always be growing and trying to advance and always be on my toes looking for the next big thing. If I had all of this money just sitting in an emergency fund, I kind of feel like I'd be like, oh, I've got all this money, I'm totally fine. And I wouldn't be out there looking for more properties and trying to expand my portfolio. And here's the other cool thing. As you ditch the emergency fund and you throw all of your money into all these other investments, you grow your wealth. And I know this is kind of stupid to say, but as you grow your wealth, the wealthier you become. And the wealthier you become, the less dependent you are on, money for emergencies because you're wealthy. You have all of these different funds that you can draw money out of. At this point in my life, because I've followed this strategy, I could lose 90%, even 95% of my total net worth and still have a pretty sizable stack of cash that I could use if I had to weather some kind of storm. And I just know that statistically, the likelihood of everything vanishing overnight it's just not very likely. Anyway, that's all for this video, guys. Hopefully you learned something and hopefully it's beneficial to you. I really do believe that if you take all of your extra money, dump it into investment accounts, and you're just consistent about it and you always stash it away so that you can't see it, that money is going to grow so much faster than just having an emergency fund in a standard checking or savings account at a credit union. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate your support. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already. That's it for this video, guys, and we will see you next week. Thanks for watching.